Right. Can I just say order, order. Welcome to the 14th sitting of the UK Parliament in the House of Commons chamber. During its last sitting in November 2023, the Youth Parliament voted to make financing and funding for free school meals its priority campaign. Following this, members of the Youth Parliament campaigned on this issue in their local areas and across the United Kingdom. I am delighted that the Youth Select Committee has also recently convened to hear evidence for its inquiry into youth violence and social media. Today's proceedings will be recorded and broadcast on YouTube, Parliament TV, and coverage of debates in the Chamber will be posted throughout the day on Blue Sky and X. Today's proceedings will also be available with BSL interpretation on YouTube. I'm also very happy to welcome the representatives today from the British Overseas Territories and the Crown Dependencies. Representatives from the British Overseas Territories will speak about their access to university, apprenticeships after school or college, and those from the Crown Dependencies will speak about the cost of living, employment and poverty. Can I personally say how I love welcome you here today, because I'm not the future. You are the future. You are the next generation of politicians. The next Prime Minister who may be sat amongst us now, or hopefully even the next Speaker. But I think it's exciting. You were telling the MPs what's important to you, what matters to you, what the future should be that you will take over from. That's why I'm so pleased that not only do we have a wonderful young Parliament today, as I say, you are the future of this Parliament. So I now call the Minister for Homelessness and Democracy. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an absolute privilege to be invited to address the UK Youth Parliament today. You are the change makers, as Mr. Speaker has said. You are our future, and you are the future stewards of our democracy. And for me, as I come into the Houses of Parliament each day as an elected Member of Parliament and stand at the dispatch box as a Minister of the Crown, I think always of how special and precious our democracy is. It's an improbable journey for a child who came to this country, aged 7, born in Bangladesh and brought up in the UK in the East End of London, elected in 2010 as Britain's first Bangladeshi heritage MP and one of the first 3 British Muslim women to be elected to our Parliament. Parliamentary democracy is our gift to the world. It has inspired so many movements across the globe, and we are rightly and should be proud of it. But we have to always remember how fragile it is, and we all have a responsibility to protect it. It's our duty to be stewards of our democracy, leaving it in a better place than we found it. And that's why this is a reforming government dedicated to change, and that's why we are planning the greatest transfer of power from Whitehall to our communities in a generation, empowering communities and reviving our democracy. And that's where you come in. I know that you will shortly be debating the motion that calls for giving votes to all 16 and 17-year-olds. And I know that that has been a consistent request of youth parliaments since the first one back in 1999. Well, today, for the first time, a minister can stand at this dispatch box and say that it is official policy, and it is the official policy position of His Majesty's government that the voting age in this country should and will be to 16. Those of you who are 16, you can work, you can pay taxes, leave home, join the army, so why should you not be able to vote as well? You have a huge stake in this country's future. You are the future. You enter an uncertain world, threatened by climate change, by technological change, big economic opportunities and uncertainties too. And that's why we want to see your generation take an active role in our democracy. And we've seen in Scotland and Wales, where young people have been able to vote, how inspiring that has been. And we look forward to working with you all to make sure that alongside what you do here, the wider community of young people who will have the opportunity to vote as we work to reduce the voting age can really engage with our democratic system and participate and make that difference to our country and have that direct relationship with our democracy. And I want to end by thanking you all for the work you do with the Youth Select Committee, the inquiries that have been held on complex issues such as social media and youth violence, the work that you've done more widely influencing young people's concerns in our country. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, it's not only because of the history of the ancient liberties and the Magna Carta, or the struggles of the suffragettes or the Chartists, or the great speeches of the incredible figures of our country, prime ministers, campaigners who changed the face of our country, that I am inspired, and I was inspired to enter public life and politics. It's the possibilities and hope that you give us of an even better future. So thank you all very much, and all the very best of luck for the rest of the day and what you go on to do in the future. Thank you.
I now call the Shadow Leader of the House, Jesse Norman.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and what a delight it is to see this fantastic assembled Youth Parliament here today. My name is Jesse Norman. I rejoice, if that's the right word, in the title of Shadow Leader of the House. The acronym is SLOTH. I have to say, it doesn't feel very slothful when I'm running around doing the Speaker's bidding and the service of the House most of the time, but that's part of the joy of my job. And I don't want to give you a political speech of any kind. I just want to talk about three things that might be of interest to you as youth parliamentarians. So the first, the acronym I want you to take away is House of Commons, HOC. And the first one I want to start with is H, for history. When you come into this building, you are entering a building that has been deliberately modelled after the Gothic period in our history. Of course, it's only 150, only a little more than 150 years old. It's a bit of a con, it's the truth of the matter, but it's designed to carry a majesty and an authority and a historical weight to it that reflects the quality and the importance of this institution of Parliament. And Parliament itself, let me remind you, is an institution that goes back to the 13th century, and we can date it in various ways, but de Montfort's Parliament, the attempt to bring in people and have them, largely for reasons of raising tax, consent and agree to the process of politics as a way of securing public consent, absolutely essential component. And even indeed the elements that make up good government go well beyond that. I mean, we can date back to Anglo-Saxon times, the idea when a reigning monarch should receive counsel and advice from people around him or her. That's a really, and it was, of course, her later on, very much so and very emphatically so. So that process of historical development is something that I hope that as youth parliamentarians you will take away from today and think about and meditate on and learn about as you go about your own lives. That's the H in HOC. The O is oratory. This is a fantastic moment for you, ladies and gentlemen, to practice your oratorical skills in front of no less a figure than our magnificent Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle. And if any of you do become Speaker, you'll be following a glorious reign that our current incumbent has had. And of course, you'll have to be waiting quite a long time before he'll consent to give up the post, because he's enjoying it and giving so much to it. But I hope you will, as youth parliamentarians, think about what you can learn about how you present. And there are many of my colleagues, dare I say, say in Parliament who don't do that. I don't mean ministers from the dispatch box who often have to read what they say. I mean people from the back benches who are often read. You see them in PMQs reading their little questions? Absolutely not. What we want is people who can speak extempore from the dispatch box or from the back benches and enliven and engage each other in debates. And I know you're going to do that today, and I congratulate you for it and thank you for it. And the final point is C. C for careers. Now, many of you, as the Speaker said, may be future cabinet ministers or members of Parliament or even, dare I say, possibly prime ministers. I hope you won't be those things until you've done something outside politics. Because what you bring to politics is what really distinguishes an effective parliamentarian. So go out, when you finish your studies, go out, learn, fail, run teams, make money, lose money, give yourself in volunteer work, do whatever is necessary to have a really rich and fulfilling and rewarding life. And then when you do that, you will have something incredibly special and powerful to bring back to your constituents. So when you make your careers, make them in politics, but make them having had careers elsewhere. Politics bringing an extra piece of public service to what you've already achieved. That's HOC, House of Commons. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for having me. Let me say one thing. It's famously been said that politics is show business for ugly people. When I look at the energy and the joy and the drive and the vigour around this chamber today, I don't see any ugly people, but I do see some potentially very formidable politicians. Thank you very much indeed.
I now call the youth member for Sunderland to read a letter from the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now speak from the Prime Minister's letter. Mr. Speaker, I am really pleased to be given the opportunity to provide opening remarks for today's sitting of the UK Youth Parliament. I welcome you to the beating heart of our democracy. It is fantastic that so many are here, putting yourselves forward and representing the voices of your constituents and young people. I was particularly pleased to hear that there are representatives not just from the UK, but from the Crown dependencies and the overseas territories here too. For several of you to have crossed oceans to be here is remarkable and shows your commitment to this really important work. In particular, I want to congratulate the youth member for Tristan da Cunha. I'm told that at 10 years old, this is the youngest person ever to speak in the House of Commons chamber. Well done, what a fantastic achievement. Your shared belief in the power of politics to change your communities and to change people's lives for the better is inspiring. It strengthens my belief in the importance of giving 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote, ensuring young people are champions of our democracy. I will set you all a challenge today. The youngest Prime Minister of this country was William Pitt the Younger, who entered Parliament aged 21 and at 24 became our youngest ever Prime Minister. When asked by the great reformer and abolitionist William Wilberforce why no one of his age had ever taken power, William Pitt is reputed to have said, "We are too young to realise certain things are impossible, so we will do them anyway." My challenge to you is to keep that energy and vitality of youth and fill our politics with the belief that the impossible can be challenged and changed, and perhaps in this chamber we have a future Prime Minister in the making, perhaps even ready to achieve it all by the age of 24. Mr. Speaker, the government is really pleased to fund the Youth Parliament's work. It is vital that young people are involved in events like today and have opportunities to learn about the democratic process while engaging with real-world issues that matter. The programme today covers several very interesting issues, and if I may, I will ask for a summary to be shared with my office. Finally, before proceedings begin, I would like to share 2 pieces of advice. Firstly, please always listen carefully to Mr. Speaker. And secondly, please do enjoy yourselves and remember that extraordinary potential you all have to make a difference. I hope everyone has a superb day, and Mr. Speaker, I wish everyone the very best for the future.
The Youth Parliament will now consider the first motion of the day, voting age. The full motion is printed on the order paper. I call the member of the Youth Parliament from Cardiff to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, 16-year-olds in Wales and Scotland can vote in devolved elections. Their peers in England and Northern Ireland cannot vote in any. Why should some young people have to wait 2 years longer for their voices to count? And for those who can vote in certain elections, why not all? By the time they turn 18, many young people will already be disillusioned with democracy. The result is low turnout. In the 2019 UK general election, under half of those aged 18 to 24 turned out to vote. Young people unengaged in this way means young voices left unheard, young votes left uncast. This is detrimental to our democracy, because a democracy without young people is a democracy without foresight. But our presence here today is proof of young people's power as a democratic force. Lowering the voting age, combined with proper political education, is how we harness this power at the polls. Election data from 2021 shows that in Scotland, those enfranchised at 16 turned out to vote in higher numbers than those who gained the vote at 18, proving that when given the opportunity earlier, more young people will turn out to vote. The campaign for votes at 16 is older than any NYP in this room. It's been selected as a UKYP priority many times. But what's different now is that we have the UK government's promise to lower the voting age to 16 behind us. We have an unprecedented opportunity to work with this government to make lowering the voting age a reality. We owe it to ourselves, to those who campaigned tirelessly before us, and to every young person across the UK to take it. Thank you.
The general debate is now open. Yes, red tie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is George and I represent Brent in London. Today we gather in the world's oldest parliament, but the challenge of our time is whether we take the unchanging ideals of those who sat on these benches before us and make them live once again in the modern world. If Britain was a country born today, we would have never designed our democracy the way it looks now, where millions of young people, welcomed when the cameras are rolling, are sidelined to the margins of debate once turned off. Giving our generation back control of our destiny is the central calling of our time. Democracies that aren't sustained don't evolve. Democracies that don't evolve die, and we are not a historical relic buried in the past. We are a living, breathing movement. Thank you.
Front row, second along. No.
Imagine being old enough to work, pay taxes, drive a car, and even join the military, yet being told you're too young to vote. That's the reality for 16 and 17-year-olds today. Young people are deeply affected by government decisions on education, healthcare, and the economy, yet we have no say in shaping our future. It's time to change that. We should expand political education in schools, ensuring that all young people understand their rights, responsibilities, and the power of their vote. Democracy is strongest when it includes every voice. If 16-year-olds can be trusted to contribute in society in so many other ways, then we should be trusted with the most fundamental right of all, the right to vote. Thank you.
Yes, with the flower. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Emmanuel Jha and I'm the Member of Parliament for Leeds. I stand before you to address the hypocrisy surrounding voting rights for young people. It's time that we recognise that 16 and 17-year-olds have the passion and the insight to engage in politics. We will live with the consequences of today's decisions, yet we're denied the power to influence them. Look at Scotland, for example. In the 2014 independence referendum, over 100,000 young people registered to vote, and around 75% of them turned out to make their voices heard. This decision empowered us to shape our future. Denying us this right means silencing our own voices. Young people can be voices of destruction sometimes, but we can also be voices of construction. Bringing fresh ideas and solutions provides a new thing to our democracy. We need political education within schools to prepare these young people to be able to vote within general elections. It's not just about fairness, it's about ensuring that our perspective matters. Let's break down the barriers that keep us from voting and create a democracy that truly represents us all. Let's bring it on, young people.
Okay. Yes.
Hello, I'm Perla Hardy, and I am an MYP for Kent. Mr. Speaker, before we talk about lowering the voting age, we must first ensure that young people actually understand politics. That is the real priority. Giving 16-year-olds the vote might sound progressive, but what good is a vote if people don't understand how government works? Too many leave school with the little knowledge of our democracy. Instead of rushing to lower the age, let's focus on proper political education, teaching young people about how laws are made, how taxes work, and what their vote really means. Countries like Denmark have excellent political literacy programs, and as a result, their young people are far more engaged. We should be learning from that model. So, before we change the voting age, let's make sure every young person has the knowledge to make informed choices. First, education. Then we can have the debate about votes for 16 to 17-year-olds. Thank you.
The back, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To put it simply, as young people, we are the future of modern democracy. With our generation's daily use of social media, we are able to have such a wide political scope. This allows us to bring fresh perspective into politics, subverting the traditional way of viewing democracy and looking at things through a greater sense of enlightenment. It is crucial that young people can express their political views. I'm sure we are all in agreement here. In preparation for today, I carried out a survey with my constituents, and the consensus was that young people feel political education would be incredibly empowering. Perhaps it's something previous generations should have had too, but that doesn't mean it's too late to start now. If 16 and 17-year-olds are given the opportunity to vote, we'll be able to have a say in the change we've always wanted to see. And as MYPs, I think we are the prime example of this. Thank you.
Siguro long yellow tie. Yep, you. Yeah, come on.
Me. I believe 16-year-olds should vote. If we can work, pay taxes, and even serve in the military, then we deserve a say in the decisions that shape our future. But let's be honest, young people are incredibly impressionable. We are constantly influenced by social media, celebrities, and even teachers. Education should teach us how to think, not what to think. Yet too often, it becomes a tool for pushing political agendas. There is a real risk that political education could turn into indoctrination rather than impartial learning. If we want young voters to make informed choices, we need a system that presents both sides of every argument fairly. Right now, too many loud voices, whether online or in the classroom, push their own biases as fact. Making political education mandatory without ensuring neutrality would be absolute lunacy. Let's empower young people to think for themselves, not manipulate them into following one viewpoint. Let's create informed voters, not brainwashed ones.
Scotland, yes.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. My name is Christian Lukens and I represent North East Scotland. The vote for 16 and 17-year-olds should be allowed in all elections and referendums. We can work, we pay taxes, we can join the army. Yet we don't have the right to have our voices heard in the decision-making of our own country, and that is unfair. A young person from Dundee said, "A lot of adults are ignorant about how they vote," and it's true, but a lot of young people are equally ignorant. And why? Because we are taught what we need to make. We need to be taught to make informed decisions. If we want to change that, we need proper political education and the right to vote. Look at Scotland. 75% of 16 and 17-year-olds voted in the 2014 Scottish independent referendum. And more recent research shows that voters' turnout is higher amongst those who voted from the age of 16 or 17. This proves that young people are ready and engaged when given the chance. It's time for the rest of the UK to follow suit. Let's trust young people with our future. We deserve a say in our decisions, in the decisions that affect us. Thank you.
At the back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Politics is a very unpredictable entity. It evokes both passionate anger and burning excitement. Perhaps the most monumental thing about politics is that it affects everyone, whether we like it or not. This wide-reaching impact of politics does not discriminate by age. Rather, the people here in Westminster dictate our lives. However, these very young people whose trajectories are shaped by politicians who sit on these green benches cannot currently vote in elections. How can this be? A 17-year-old can drive a car, have a child, give blood, own their own home, and even own a private pilot's licence. Now, if somebody in here can explain to me why a 17-year-old can be trusted to fly a plane but not vote for somebody who represents them, then trust me, I am all ears. I absolutely echo the Minister's words today, and I'm delighted to hear that votes for 16 should hopefully be on the agenda very soon. So let us educate our young people so that they understand politics better, and please, let's give them the right to vote for who represents them.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Romeo Bremer from the constituency of Hackney. Yes, Mr. Speaker, 16 and 17-year-olds should have the right to vote. It's often the argument that young people are not mature. However, you already heard, Mr. Speaker, that young people have certain liberties, such as being able to work, pay taxes. Our rights are inconsistent, and this needs to change. How are we able to ensure security in our lives or influence the next generation if we are not given the right to vote? It's a civic duty and increases the responsibility that young people constantly show that they possess. It is vital for our democracy to franchise young people alongside having political literacy and education. This is not just fundamental for 16-year-olds, but it would also have been crucial for modern-day voters. We should be able to have our ideas represented in various votes and elections to instrument change in society. This policy should be a priority for the UK Youth Parliament so it can be a change for the next generation, by the next generation. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go right to the back. No, sit down, no, next to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name's Neve. I represent the area of Bristol. As a representative of Bristol, we have found that our young people believe that votes at 16 and 17 is a necessary change that should be implemented. Some may say that young people are easily influenced, mistrusting, and have a lack of understanding about politics. However, with the addition of political education, young people feel that they will be more informed and they will be at less risk of radicalisation, as commonly they are left to learn from social media that is typically a platform that spreads misinformation. In a survey carried out by Channel 4 of 319 people aged 16 to 24, found that 80% said they would use their vote, proving the desperate wanting for the young people to engage in the democratic system. We are the future. We should be able to make our mark and change our future for the better. Thank you.
Yes, with the blue folder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in front of you today. My name is Isabel Bryan. I stand in front of you today representing the young people of North Belfast. Many who feel disillusioned with today's political systems. In a survey done by the Economic and Social Institute, found that 96% of Northern Ireland felt that its voice had not been heard. This represents a failure by governments to listen to the ideas and voices of young people. This must change. Votes at 16 would allow young people to reclaim their voice and feel like they have a say in their own future. We can no longer let young people be unrepresented and undervalued. Votes at 16 allows young people to hold their elected officials to account and build a future in which they feel included. But this must come with political education. Too many young people are misinformed about politics and rely on social media for their political views. For votes at 16 to work effectively, we must educate young people and give them political power. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Deceit, lies and corruption, the pillars of our government. Dear Mr. Speaker, everybody is tired. I'm tired. You're tired. We're all tired. I'm tired of not having change. We must have a change. The power to have a vote is to change. Over and over again, our government has failed to act. We need change. In order to build a great nation, we need a strong foundation. and this foundation stems from a wide and diverse group of voters, which should include young people's voices. It stems from the reformation of the education system and the inclusion of politics in the curriculum. No longer can we be innocent bystanders while we watch these so-called politicians swindle us of our future. After all, we are that future. Let us have the right to make change. Voting is perhaps one of the most important rights we have as citizens. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Let's not allow people who abuse power back into positions of power. Brexit cost £114 billion British pounds, detrimentally affecting the country's economic output. Inflation, all-time high. But don't worry, it's okay. It's not like it will have long-lasting effects. Right. Oh wait, yes it will. Today's generation, our generation of young, blossoming youths, have more decorum and backbone than frankly most. The past is the past, and the future is ever so near. So give us the pen and let us take control of our future.
Give your name. Probably just have your name and constituency.
Justice Muir for Kent.
Excellent, thank you. Let's go over to Wales. Who have we got from Wales?
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Daniel and I represent Wrexham in North Wales. Young people today are angry, and why shouldn't they be? Youth services have been cut over the last 10 years by a rough 32% in real terms. Young people's work is valued at less than the work that is done by our older peers, and schools are having to make cuts to their budgets, affecting our education. With one study survey finding that 75 respondents said their school was running a deficit or was only sustaining a budget by cuts to our education. Young people, all while young people lack the power to change their MP. This lack of representation will leads to people feeling that politics cannot make a difference, with one study finding that half of young people have lost faith in UK democracy. In Wales, we do have the right to vote, and many exercise this in the 2021 Senedd elections. However, a BBC report found that nearly 35,000 young people in Wales were not registered to vote in this election. So yes, we should be providing young people with the political right to vote, but this should not mean that political education is swept to the side. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Okay. Let's go to yes.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Phoebe Gruber and I'm here representing Cheshire West and Chester. The increased in turnout as a result of enfranchising 16 and 17-year-olds has already been discussed. However, not only does this turnout increase directly, it leads to a long-term positive multiplier effect in voting intention. A study in Austria, who became the first EU country to allow votes at 16 in 2007, showed that if individuals experience their first elections in a context where the base probability turnout is higher, as it is for 16 and 17-year-olds due to the educational social networks that they are embedded in, they are more likely to retain a higher steady turnout rates in the future. Therefore, allowing votes at 16 will increase long-term turnout, strengthening electoral mandates. Thank you.
Right at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Olivia Morris. I'm from East of England, Central Bedfordshire. Young people have been fighting for 16 and 17-year-olds to be voting for for many years than people in this room have been alive. This has been fighted for decades. And we're still in this room fighting for why 16 and 17-year-olds should have the right to vote. In the future, we are looking at issues such as climate change, education, healthcare, and this directly affects us, and it directly affects the young generations of the future. So why should 16 and 17-year-olds not have the right to vote? When this affects us, it affects them, and decisions need to be made now for our future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Finlay Shaw, Member of Youth Parliament for Newcastle upon Tyne. I urge members to vote in favour of this motion because, as we've heard from the address from the Prime Minister and the Minister for Democracy, it's already government policy. And a previous member said it's soon to be on the agenda. Over the general election, it was not really mentioned by any parties that had on the manifesto because it's still seen as a political taboo. And it's still not widely mentioned by the government. And it's our responsibility to represent our constituents and to represent them to the people in power. So even if you don't agree with the motion, it's already going to be government policy and it's widely wanted by our constituents. So I, for that reason, urge you to vote in favour of the motion.
Yes, round the back with the blue folder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Ashaz Abbas. I am a member of Youth Parliament for Rotherham. I stand to argue that 16 and 17-year-olds should be allowed to vote in all elections and referendums. The truth is, young people are already impacted by political decisions. From education policies to climate change, their future are shaped by the choices made today. So why should they have a say? Critics might argue that 16 and 17-year-olds aren't mature enough to make such important decisions, but I ask you, is age the true measure of readiness to participate in democracy? Many 16-year-olds are already working, paying taxes and contributing to society in meaningful ways. They deserve the right to shape the policies that affect them. And let's not forget the role of political education. We need to equip young people with the knowledge and skills to make informed choices. Schools should provide comprehensive civic education, enabling students to engage critically with political issues. This will ensure that they are not only eligible to vote, but are also well prepared to do so. Allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote is not just about granting rights, it's about giving them the responsibility and the tools to be active, informed citizens. The future is theirs, and it's time their voices are heard in shaping it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Oliver from Staffordshire. With political education, we can all agree it is a necessity. However, every person here knows in PSHE lessons we are often thrown to the side because teachers are overworked and underpaid. 16 and 17-year-olds having the right to vote means that people can use that education and effectively use it. There's no point pushing for political education if young people do not use it. Frankly, that's impossible. That's not impossible, but just stupid to do. We need 16 and 17-year-olds having the right to vote in order for people to use that education to better this country, or else we'll just go into a cycle of decline and nothing will happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I now call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Telford and the Wrekin to conclude the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This motion gives a voice to a generation of 16 to 18-year-olds who feel forgotten, who feel voiceless in our democracy. We face a broken education system that has failed to realise the dreams of millions, a climate crisis ignored by the decision-makers of the past and present at the expense of us, the adults of tomorrow. A generation who feel disappointed that their warnings aren't valued and their issues are consistently not prioritised. We're told we're not worthy of the vote, that we lack the life experience, that we won't value a voice in democracy. We're asked to accept an imbalance in representation that undermines our ability to engage. But how can we engage with a system that denies us the tools to do so? How can we understand a democracy that deprives us both the vote and the education to use it? This motion does more than grant young people the right to vote. It ensures they're equipped to use it responsibly. It fosters the emergence of informed critical thinkers who will challenge their leaders and hold them accountable. It creates a society that's more inclusive and tolerant. It builds an electorate that will ensure future generations are included in the process. A system slanted against the young undermines the British values that underpin the UK, the values of democracy, individual liberty, the rule of law and tolerance. It's time to follow the example of developed nations and grant all those aged 16 and over the right to vote in elections and referendums. This motion is our chance to give a greater voice to a generation who felt forgotten, the generation we stand here to represent. This can be the catalyst in energising youth turnout and participation in the politics of our communities. It may finally make society remember our place in any vision they have for the UK. For we are the future of this land, the leaders of tomorrow. It's time our democracy reflects that, not through words and promises, but through the right to meaningfully engage. It's about time younger voices were recorded at the ballot box. It's about time we were supported in understanding our rights and how our democracy functions. Thank you.
The Youth Parliament will now consider the second motion of the day, living wage. The full motion is printed on the order paper. I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from County Durham to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it truly fair that the national minimum wage for workers under the age of 22 is unequal to the national living wage for those over the age of 22? Minimum wage is the lowest wage that any employer can legally pay their employees. This was introduced in the UK in 1998 to strengthen the rights and protection of workers, yet this minimum is not the same for everybody, with only those over 22 being entitled to the living wage, which aims to cover the basic costs of living. Past the age of 16, many young people need to support themselves and sometimes their families financially, yet their minimum wage is currently little over half of the living wage. Past the age of 18, young people may enter full-time work and require the same income to live off as an adult over 22. This is particularly relevant as, according to the House of Commons Library, only 36% of 18-year-olds in the UK entered higher education in 2024, meaning the majority are choosing not to attend university. Many of these people do not receive support from their parents or carers, giving them no choice but to work to provide for themselves. We must guarantee that these young people are able to supply themselves with the basic necessities, which they may not be able to do without earning the living wage. No young person should struggle to earn enough money to survive. It is important that the minimum wage for under 22s is raised, because the value of labour should be universal, meaning that all workers should be paid an equal wage for equal work. This change could prevent the risk of businesses exploiting and overworking young people for cheaper pay and lead to all workers being treated equally by employers too. In summary, raising the minimum wage for workers under 22 to match the national living wage will allow the young people living and working in our constituencies to better support themselves regardless of their situation and make sure that all workers are treated fairly and equally.
The general debate is now open.
Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Nang and I'm the MYP for the London Borough of Bromley. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's maths. And if maths does me right, then the average 18 to 21-year-old makes about £23,000, rounded to the nearest 1,000. You're welcome. However, a 22 to 29-year-old doing the same job ends up with £30,000. There's a £7,000 difference simply because someone's a year older than you. The problem is that you're paying someone less for the same job, causing income inequality. However, low pay can discourage young people from continuing their education, which I feel is the major issue with the minimum wage. 10,000 students have conducted a survey to see how the cost of living crisis affected them. Now, 76% of the students gave the exact answer that it had a negative impact on their education. This results in the fact that students can no longer continue education simply because they'll be behind on bills. University states that there's a limit to what action they can do without the government. Now, I see an exact correlation with that recently, and I hope you guys will know this, that 16 to 24-year-olds are the loneliest age group in the UK. The minimum wage has a big role in that. This is a crisis that needs action, and needs action now. Thank you.
Yes, from the office, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Emily Moyer, the member for the Armed Forces Overseas. It is time to end the outdated and unfair system that undervalues young workers. Right now, if you're under 22, you can legally earn a third less than a 23-year-old, even for the same job with the same hours and the same responsibilities. Yet, the cost of living does not discriminate by age. Rent, food, and transport all cost the same whether you're 19 or 29. So the solution is simple: equal pay for equal work. Raising the minimum wage for those under 22 to match those over 22 would prevent exploitation of young workers, ensure fairness in the workplace, and improve financial independence. So, to go against Jessie J, yet again, it is about the money, money, money. A fair day's pay deserves a fair day's work. No exceptions. So vote this as the priority. Thank you.
Yes, in the yellow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Sunny Kai and I'm from Yorkshire and Humber. Hypothetically, let's say this notebook in my hand was made by an 18-year-old, someone who put their blood, sweat and tears into producing. And here's another, identical in every way, but made by a 25-year-old who also put in the same effort. Both notebooks, they serve the same purpose, they deliver the same results. So why is it that an 18-year-old is paid less for producing the exact same product? This is ageism at its finest. We live in a society where age determines income, not ability, not effort, not dedication. An 18-year-old is just as in need of a fair pay as a 25-year-old. They face the same rise in living costs, the same bills, the same need to support themselves. So why are we putting young people at an economic disadvantage from the start? This wage disparity isn't just unfair, it actively disencourages young people from entering the workforce. Why work just as hard as your older colleagues when you're paid less simply because of your age? It's time we ask ourselves, do we truly value fairness in the workplace? If so, then equal work deserves equal pay no matter the age. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Sophie Bloomfield. I'm the MYP for Redcar and Cleveland. From the 2021 census, we can conclude that for both the 16 to 24-year-old age group and the 25 to 34-year-old age group, the most popular occupation was sales and retail assistants. However, according to the national minimum wage rates effective from April 2021, the youngest members of the age bracket were making almost 50% less than their older colleagues. As I'm sure you'll agree, the livelihoods of our young people have been governed by unfair pay for far too long. In order to allow the enrichment of the lives of the youth population, to improve their financial literacy, and to prepare them for the responsibilities of economic participation, it is vital that we encourage the raising of the national minimum wage for under 22s to equal that of the national living wage. Thank you.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Hermione Cartwright and I represent Mid Suffolk. May I start with that there are 16-year-olds that live on their own. Some live with children, some live with mental ill health, and some live with physical ill health. The average person, 16 to 21, has to work right from leaving school age. So why is it fair that they don't get paid as much for doing the same job? The young people that decide to move out at 16 are forced to get a job and may only get £6.40, depending on the job. Under 18s can only work a maximum of 40 hours a week, so that would only earn £256 a week and roughly £124 a month. We also have to bear in mind that they have to be in some sort of education or training from 16 to 18. Therefore, there are also limits. This is also limiting the hours you can work. Other factors we also need to consider is the fact that people need to pay for travel, rent, electric, water and food in order to be sustainable and functionally surviving. £124 a month does not cover all of this. Another issue is that a low-income family who is receiving benefits from and a young person tries to get a job, the benefits will be cut due to the overall household income. This then makes the family struggle more because now that the young person is having to help pay for the living necessities, they can't pay for travel, food or things that the individual person needs on their day-to-day life. Without being able to pay for these things, it limits the young person's success for the future, and that is not okay.
Can I just say to people as well, if you've already spoken, please don't try and take another chance off somebody. Yes, from Oldham, why not?
I'm Louis Wilde and I'm a member of Youth Parliament for Oldham and Saddleworth, the home of Premier League fan members Oldham Athletic AFC. The minimum wage is something that should be equalised. I come from Oldham, which is one of the poorest towns in the country, and a ward called Coldhurst in my town has the highest child poverty rate per capita in the entire UK. I have grown up around lots of people who are young carers, and I've grown up on a council estate which is quite notorious where I'm from for not being the most lavish of places. And the fact that these people, who are 16 to 18-year-olds, are having to get jobs, be paid less and support their own families while barely struggling to actually keep their families afloat is quite honestly a travesty, as I'm sure all of my fellow members agree. And I urge you all to agree with this motion that the minimum wage should be equalised, because the fact that young carers are struggling to provide for their families and put food on the table for everything else is just horrifying, and I'm sure you all agree. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Yeah, second along. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Matthew Quinn from West Scotland. I respect the aspiration of the motion. I think it's a well-written motion. I just want to provide an alternative point, and that point is this. We have to reflect on what makes young people employable. And the reality is often it is because they are cheap labour. Now, we can disagree with that, we can take exception to that. That's okay. I would argue we should take exception to that. But we have to be aware that by being able to employ young people for less, it keeps young people employed. It ensures that youth unemployment is low, which we're seeing across the UK right now, and it ensures that young people have opportunities for the future. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Erin Belton, and I'm honoured to represent today the young constituents of Bracknell Forest in the South East. Age is a protected characteristic in the UK. I'm sure you can all agree that paying somebody less because of their race, sex or religion would be completely abhorrent. So why should we discriminate based on age? Young people are just as capable as others, and they should be paid as much for doing the exact same job. We've heard about it being called the living wage. How are we as young people supposed to live when we are only earning half as much as somebody a couple of years older than us? How are we supposed to live? How are we supposed to thrive? This is why it is imperative that the national minimum wage for under 22-year-olds should be raised to match the national living wage for those over 22. I've never been prouder to propose. Thank you.
From the end, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Kieran Lancaster. I am the NYP for Caerphilly, and while I'm hearing all lovely speeches where national minimum wage should be... Sorry, Mr. Speaker. While all national living wage should be equal as the national minimum wage, as an 18-year-old who works in a bar, having to listen to conversations about history of Wales or why an 18-year-old is good at darts, I've got a clue, it's not me. Why should we increase the national minimum wage to the national living wage when it's technically already has increased as of April the 1st, 2025? As of April the 1st, 2025, under 18s will earn £7.55, 18 to 21s will earn £10, and over 21s will earn £12.21. If we don't increase the wage, young people will be employed. As from the time frame of October to December 2024, 642,000 young people remained unemployed. That means there was a 14.8 unemployment rate. This is maybe because of a lack of experience or a poor education. We need to encourage young people to gain experience, also to encourage them to go to education. Otherwise, what's the point? Because we're just going to be standing here today, no jobs, no income money, and some people who are the sole income... Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I'm really constructed. Are sole income providers for their family. So I encourage all of you, please let young people in the UK gain experience and gain education. It will benefit everyone, trust me. Thank you very much.
Right at the back, in the farthest corner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Zara. As a representative of Bristol, we have found that our young people believe that we should raise the minimum wage. This is evident from the belief that doing the same job but getting paid less is unfair in the eyes of a young person. The argument that raising the minimum wage allows no improvement throughout the ages of 16 to 22 is heavily disagreed with by our young people, as they believe the experience they gain along their work journey will earn them more money and by their skill level. As well as this, they argue that 16-year-olds' efforts are just as effective and they're just as capable as a 22-year-old, and therefore shouldn't be penalised due to their age. Overall, our youth believe the gap should be closed as they are doing the same job and younger people work just as hard.
Yes, in green, Northerner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Ciara McGee and I am the NYP for Fermanagh and South Tyrone. Now, many people in my constituency, their biggest milestone in life, or one of them, is passing their driving test. Now, I can say I'm a proud second-time passer, and I would like to point out that my car insurance as a first-time driver is £3,527.95. I don't know how any young person can be expected to pay for their car insurance at £6.40 an hour. That would mean working 11 hours a week on top of your full-time education if you're still in it, and also on top of any leisure activities. That is 11 hours per week, never mind petrol, never mind tax, never mind any mechanical repairs needed for the car. I believe young people's hard work and determination, as we can see across this room today, we're such a hard working generation, and we are worth so much more.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Noah Wood and I represent the constituency of Nottinghamshire. Young people are aspirational, they're ambitious and they're capable. But today, for the young people we represent, the opportunity is slim and the help is scarce. For many young people, saving and affording the futures they dream of is hard. What's making it harder is a lack of a fair wage for under 22s. Work, I've always understood, is the best way to make something of yourself. And so many young people today are working so hard to fulfil the ambitions they hold onto. Whether it be a Saturday job or a holiday job, whether it be to save for a car, uni or to spend. Either way, work really is the best education, and most of all because it should come with a reward. This is a policy that needs our support. It isn't just about numbers, it's about fairness. It's about dignity and the recognition of the hard work young people contribute in opening themselves up to employment. Young people are building experiences, leading to careers and futures worthy of the talents and skills they possess and are so wrongly accused of lacking.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Anusha Hussain, the Youth MP of Redbridge. The cost of living is one of the most critical issues families and young people are facing today. School uniform, books, transport does not come without a cost, and it's the same regardless of the price, regardless of age. Aligning the wages of younger workers with those over 22 could alleviate financial hardships faced by young people, ensuring equitable compensation for similar work. Young people's time, hard work, effort is as significant as anyone else. Furthermore, higher wages may encourage more young people to enter workforce, potentially reducing youth unemployment rates, fostering economic independence. As Youth MP of Redbridge, which is a borough with one out of 3 young people living in child poverty, I urge we raise the level of national minimum wage so young people aren't left behind and we close the gap of inequality. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Daisy Foley. I'm from Cheshire East. University is expensive, and as the cost of living crisis continues to increase and increase and increase, our wages don't seem to go up as well. From April this year, the national minimum wage for under 18 will be £7.55, which is about the same as a drink from Costa. How are we meant to have financial independence or prepare for our future if we are not paid enough to do so? We will do the same job, we will do the same hours, yet we are paid less because of factors that we cannot change, our age. Thank you.
Yes, back one exactly.
My name's Adria and I represent East North Yorkshire. I live in a small northern coastal town with houses mainly owned by retired people settling down. We are surrounded by many holiday homes and not many well-paid jobs, so without teenagers and young adult workers, cafes, restaurants and leisure facilities that provide services for the influx of summer tourists would be massively understaffed, resulting in many having to close, causing further issues for the limited older workforce we do have. I may be in the minority when I say I have worked since I was 13 and I'm approaching my 4th year working the busy summer season. Why then am I expected to take a lesser wage for the same job someone 6 years older than me does? Especially considering in some cases I have more experience. This feels like ageism at its finest.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lucas Wainwright, MYP for County Durham. From April 2025, the national minimum wage for over 21s will rise to £12.10 an hour, but 16 and 17-year-olds doing the same hard work will only get £7.55. That's an 18% increase, yet still far below what's needed to live. Young workers are often exploited for cheap labour, working long, physically demanding jobs for as little as £6.40 an hour. Many are trying to save for independence, university, or simply to afford for the basic necessities. As Maya from the Durham Youth Council said, every worker deserves dignity, no matter their age. Raising the minimum wage for under 22s to match the living wage isn't just fair, it's necessary for a just society. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, my name is Thomas and I'm the MYP for Essex in the east of England. I'd like you just to imagine this for one moment. Imagine not being able to afford the basic necessities like food, water or shelter. It's a harsh reality, isn't it? But it isn't just a reality. It's reality for so many young people up and down the country. The cost of living crisis isn't easier for 16-year-olds compared to 22-year-olds. It is exactly the same. Our cost of living is the same for young people
aged 23 and 18. So why can a 17-year-old earn just £6.40 an hour, while a 23-year-old earns just over £11 an hour? The cost of living, again, does not decrease for young people. They pay the same for rent, transport and food as our older colleagues or peers. Low wages push young people into financial insecurity, forcing young people to take multiple jobs while studying, which can detriment or harm their education and well-being. If young people are expected to thrive and continue in their education and also contribute to the economy, they must be compensated equally for their work. Raising the national minimum wage for under 22-year-olds to match the national living wage is not just a matter of fairness, it is a necessity for financial security and economic stability. So I do urge you to vote on this motion. Thank you.
Woman in the middle, yes. Yep. No, stand up. Yeah, do you? Yeah. No, behind you. Yeah. No, not you, next door. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emma and I am the representative of the constituency of Somerset in the South West. We do the same work, so why shouldn't we get the same pay? How are we expecting to have a thriving job market with young people gaining independence when young people are being underpaid and unfairly treated in the workplace? This motion must be prioritised as young people need to be encouraged into the job market and be involved in a positive working environment, as we are all going to be in jobs for a long time. This is a permanent issue which isn't only for now. Your entry into the job market stays with you until you retire, forming the basic building blocks to future employment and success. In addition, if under 22s are paid the same as over 22s, their work ethic and drive to improve their skills will increase, helping you, helping me, helping the community. Everyone in society is affected by these young people who work these jobs. Why shouldn't we prioritise this? As youth representatives, we need to ensure that every young person entering the job market is paid the same as over 22, so that they can work in a positive environment to ensure they can flourish and perform at their best. This change in the minimum wage must be prioritised. It affects every single young person under the age of 22 who has a job. We must prioritise this to draw attention to the lack of equal monetary support behind young people in jobs, and we must ensure that young people are valued and represented in their working communities. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Katrina and I represent Central Scotland. I'd like to tell you all about a constituent of mine who helps his family pay for groceries. They live in poverty and he works minimum wage. He is lucky compared to others. His family can survive without his wage, even if it was hard. Others can't. Why should families who don't have enough money to survive have to rely on children who aren't getting paid enough themselves? Everybody should be paid enough to survive. Thank you.
Yes. That one.
My name is Yvonne Dixit. I'm representing West Sussex. Consider a young worker, barely 21, who does the same job as someone slightly older, earns up to 25% less simply because of their age. The official figures from the UK government make it clear. Our minimum wage structure penalises youth, despite the fact that living costs remain the same. Analyses by the Resolution Foundation and the Institute for Fiscal Studies reveal that this disparity pushes many young workers into in-work poverty. International evidence from New Zealand shows that reforming youth wage rates can be done without harming employment and even boost economic security. It's time we remove age-based wage discrimination and ensure that every worker under 22 receives a wage that truly reflects the cost of living in today's world.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Rihanna and I represent Blaenau Gwent. In 2023, an estimated 13% of girls gave birth before they were aged 18. If they are single mothers, emancipated or young homeowners, why are they not getting paid the same amount as those over the age of 21? The reason for this is that the government want to encourage young people to stay in school. However, this is not realistic and it is not their decision to make. Young people should not be subject to this blatant age discrimination. It is not fair to expect the same work ethic for less compensation. After years of the UK advocating for equality and fighting to close the gender pay gap, we have created a new discriminatory salary. This needs to change. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Sienna here, MYP for Wolverhampton. We're always told that young people are the future. If this is the case, in the shadow of a cost of living crisis, when student debt is inescapable, how can we be justifiably denied a fair wage? It's called the minimum wage, but why should we be forced to start our journey into adulthood with the bare minimum life has to offer? How are we supposed to thrive when we aren't given an income that allows us to? Because employment defined by financial difficulty and underpinned by struggle ruins the purpose of work at all. By not allowing us to have a feasible wage on the basis of age, you are undermining our value to the world before we've even had a chance to contribute to it. By saying we don't have enough experience, not only are you belittling us, but you are condemning us to a life of dependence. Because to contribute to this great society, young people need to be valued by it first. So yes, I'm calling for changes in the minimum wage so we can get the maximum out of our future. Thank you.
I now call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Lagan Valley to conclude the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. This is one of the many rules within George Orwell's Animal Farm, but I need you to bear with me for a moment. I promise I'll explain how a book published in 1945 is relevant to fair pay for all. The reason that the living wage is called the living wage is because you are meant to be able to live on it. But we, as young people, need to be able to live too. We need to be able to afford transport, food, stationery for our education, and oil to heat our homes. But we simply cannot afford to, due to being asked to work like adults, but not being paid like adults. I understand that many young people have parents to support them, but not everyone has someone that can or is in the financial position to do so. Some young people rely on the money that they earn, not to mention the fact that many 16 to 21-year-olds are not in education, but instead work full-time. They deserve to receive a livable wage, as they are working the same amount of hours as someone over the age of 22 would. Costs are the same for many items, regardless of age. For example, in Northern Ireland, adult fares on public transport are payable from age 16 right up until you receive an OAP card. Furthermore, menstrual products are the same age whether you are 16 or 26, and they are a day-to-day factor for many people. A 16-year-old being paid $6.40 an hour is expected to pay the same as a 22-year-old being paid $11.40 an hour. I ask this chamber, how is it fair? I want to go back to my earlier quote from Animal Farm and how we're all equal, but some are more equal than others. Mr. Speaker, those that are 16 to 21 often do the exact same jobs as those who are 22. They are equal in employment, but those who are 22 and over are more equal as they get paid so much more. Thank you.
We are now moving on to a very important part of our programme. We'll be hearing from young people who are here to represent each of the British Overseas Territories and the Crown Dependencies. This is the third time we will have had representation from the British Overseas Territories at the UK Parliament sitting, and the second time we'll have representative from the Crown Dependencies. Many of the decisions we make here in the UK have a huge impact on their futures. So I'm very pleased to be able to offer them a platform on which they will represent young people in their territories. The topics for their speeches we're about to hear were voted by over 2,900 young people in the first ever Make Your Mark ballot for the British Overseas Territories and the Crown Dependencies. Young people from the British Overseas Territories choose access to university, apprenticeships, after school or college, and those from the Crown Dependencies chose the cost of living, employment and poverty. We'll hear first from the representatives from the British Overseas Territories on access to university, apprenticeships, after school or college. I now call the youth representative of Anguilla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Members of Parliament, I must say it is an honour to stand before you as a youth parliamentarian representing Anguilla to speak on education and learning. Though small, Anguilla prioritizes education as a driver of progress. Our government invests in quality learning, ensuring young people gain the skills needed to contribute meaningfully to society. As education evolves, we remain committed to innovation, inclusivity, and excellence. The provided $4.5 million in scholarships has expanded access to universities and apprenticeships, but we must go further. Stronger collaboration between schools, colleges, and industries will bridge the gap between education and employment, providing practical skills for success. A major challenge is securing funding for interactive learning. Initiatives like Promethean boards, laptops, and online platforms enhance inclusivity, particularly for students with special needs. Continued investment is essential to equip our students for the workforce. Education also plays a vital role in reducing youth violence. Without clear opportunities, young people become vulnerable to negative influences. A strong education system backed by proper resources not only empowers youth, but also creates a safer, more prosperous society. I commend Anguilla's government for prioritizing education and investing millions. However, we cannot do it alone. With more and continued UK support, we can ensure every young person reaches their full potential. Investing in the youth strengthens Anguilla and helps break cycles of violence in our communities. I thank you.
The youth representative from Bermuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, education is the foundation of a thriving society that empowers and equips individuals with skills and knowledge. As Bermuda restructures its public education system, I urge our leaders to focus on bringing light, liberty, and learning to everyone. Bermuda's 2016 Census Education Brief underscores the link between education and socioeconomic mobility. It focuses on the academic attainment of the population aged 25 to 64. Although Bermuda's residents have made progress in educational attainment, significant differences remain, specifically regarding Bermudian status, race, and sex. Mr. Speaker, Bermudians lag behind non-Bermudians in university degree attainment, with only 30% holding a degree compared to 52% of non-Bermudians. This reflects recruiting overseas workers to fill professional, senior official, and managerial positions. These differences in educational attainment persist along other platitudes: white Bermudians more than black Bermudians, and women more than men. These differences are reminiscent of economic, social, and historical barriers that have no place on the island aiming for prosperity. We can break these barriers by inspiring a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. This alludes to the skewed wealth accumulation on our island, as degree holders earn more than those without qualifications. Furthermore, limited education restricts upward mobility, emphasizing the need for lifelong learning and upskilling to compete in the job market. Mr. Speaker, scholarships have reduced financial obstacles to education. However, if we desire to help Bermudians climb the socioeconomic ladder, we must avoid framing education solely as a stepping stone to employment. Instead, consider education a valuable pursuit and encourage individuals to appreciate lifelong learning. In closing, Mr. Speaker, Indian writer Shakuntala Devi once said, "Education is not just about going to school and getting a degree. It's about widening your knowledge and absorbing the truth about life. By embracing this philosophy, we will cultivate a skilled and prepared generation to contribute to a better Bermuda and world." Thank you.
Can we have the youth representative of the British Virgin Islands?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Education is so often referred to as the key to success, but what happens when that key is not accessible to all? I stand before you as a young voice from the British Virgin Islands to highlight the critical issue of educational access for students from the overseas territories. Students from the BVI and other overseas territories face significant financial barriers to higher education abroad, particularly in the UK. While home fee status and tuition loans may help, the lack of maintenance loans remains a major hurdle, often forcing students to abandon their studies due to living costs. At the May 2023 Joint Ministerial Council, the UK and Territory ministers acknowledged this issue, but no concrete solutions have emerged, limiting students' access to UK education. Beyond academia, regular extreme climatic weather events have highlighted a shortage of skilled tradespeople. In response, our ministry, along with our local college, launched a technical vocational apprenticeship program to equip youth with practical skills. However, more must be done to elevate apprenticeships and vocational training as a viable career path, ensuring both community resilience and sustainable futures for our youth. I urge our governments to advocate for maintenance loans for overseas territory students to remove financial barriers, and invest in vocational training and apprenticeships to address critical skills shortages. By taking these steps, we honor our commitment to resilience, self-reliance, and the empowerment of our youth. Let us ensure that every young person in the British Virgin Islands and other overseas territories has the opportunity to unlock their full potential. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now come to the youth representative of Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon. My name is Jack Hurlston, and I am honoured to be here today to representing my home country, our beloved Cayman Islands. A small Caribbean nation of around 85,000 people, we are a nation striving for kindness to be considered synonymous with our culture, having affectionately adopted the Department of Tourism slogan, Cayman Kind. I am grateful for this platform to speak on a topic of growing concern to me and my peers. One of insufficient accessibility to quality secondary education and inability to accommodate our neurodiverse student population or those with special learning requirements. With a rapidly increasing youth population, all schools within our islands are already at carrying capacity, and a post-pandemic population surge has led to an even further reduced number of places available to neurotypical secondary students, let alone individuals with learning differences. Having personally struggled with a challenging learning style since early childhood, I too had difficulty finding a place in a quality mainstream school for my crucial secondary years, and was left with little option but to look at alternatives abroad to further my studies and achieve maximum academic potential. This predicament ultimately led me to the UK to study for my GCSEs, and although this move has been beneficial for me, it is my perspective that, despite the best efforts of charitable organizations and accessibility advocates, much more support and assistance is necessary in Cayman to equalize opportunities and help the growing number of students with special learning requirements, many of whom do not have the option to study abroad in the UK. Through policy intervention, investment and oversight, further action could be taken to help all Commonwealth students achieve their highest potential in their home countries, supporting and providing dedicated educational resources for our neurodiverse populations, and allowing for the delivery of world-class education that we are privileged to already have access to here in the UK. In closing, we are one British family, and there should be equal access for all, no matter our country of origin or diverse way of learning. We're all in this together and must look out for one another. We must be kind, courteous, and most of all, caring. Thank you for allowing me to speak to an issue facing many in our Commonwealth nations. We are blessed by our commonality and our ability to learn from each other to solve our shared issues. Thank you.
We now have the youth representative of the Falkland Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Stanley Betts, and I'd like to thank the Speaker for giving me this opportunity to share my experience as an overseas student from the Falkland Islands. I'm currently in my second year of A-levels, and I want to share how the Falkland Islands has benefited my education and students like me. Unlike the Cayman Islands and other territories, we have limited access to higher education and certain apprenticeships. Instead, the Falkland Island Government funds students to study abroad with the Education Department standing at £10.7 million. Over £1 million spent on further education, supporting accommodation, travel fees and university debt for those who continue their education. Many study at Peter Symonds, Winchester and Chichester College in the UK or in New Zealand due to its agricultural ties. While students have no obligation to return after being funded, this goodwill gesture encourages many to contribute to the community, showing that funding is not just for the individual, but an investment for the Falkland Islands. Apprenticeship students return in skills like carpentry and plumbing, essential for the maintaining infrastructure and supporting the growth of Stanley and the islands overall. Studying abroad also means we must quickly adapt to a new environment and education system. For some, it is their first extended stay in the UK or their first visit altogether. I found that transitioning to living without my family was an adjustment. Fortunately, many UK colleges that welcome overseas students often share halls of residence, allowing me to live with my friends from the islands, easing homesickness and making the experience more comfortable. The Falkland Islands are in a unique position as an overseas territory when it comes to education, yet I believe we have a system that other territories could adopt with its strong support for the youth. I hope the Falklands approach to an education inspires discussion on overseas students worldwide. Thank you for your time.
We now come to the youth representative of Gibraltar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is James Vinette, and I am a proud British Gibraltarian. When we're thirsty, we open the tap. We never question the availability of clean, plentiful water. But for millions around the world, safe drinking water is a luxury. It can often almost be impossible to come by. The same can be said about education. Though small in size, Gibraltar has always understood that knowledge is the foundation of opportunity. Every classroom, every book, every teacher is a testament to the belief that education is a necessity. Mr. Speaker, as you know, as the Chancellor of the University of Gibraltar, the government funds our university studies in the UK, tuition fees and maintenance grants. But that privileged access to education is not something that we should ever take for granted. Our investment in education has shaped generations, allowing the Rock and its people to thrive, despite the many challenges we have faced and still continue to face. Every young person in Gibraltar, regardless of gender, background or circumstance, is given the tools to succeed. Because, Mr. Speaker, education is the key to empowerment, and no nation, big or small, can progress without it. But for some, access to education is an impossibility. In Afghanistan, the Taliban deprives millions of girls and women of an education. There, the future of an entire generation is in jeopardy. I believe that without international pressure from the UN, the EU, and other influential bodies like the Commonwealth, injustices like these will prevail. So we all have a shared role in education. We all have a shared responsibility. Let us, together and collectively, ease the pathway to universities, apprenticeships, and to a bright future. Students, parents, educators, industry, and more widely governments and international bodies, let us all ensure that everyone has the same opportunities that many of us are lucky to enjoy. Thank you.
The youth representative of Montserrat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Youth Parliament, I am Shari Bazi, the proud representative of the lush green and beautiful Emerald Isle, Montserrat. Mr. Speaker, education is a social process that molds young people into individuals living purposeful and dignified lives. It contributes significantly to the formation of society structure when combined with other social forces. Access to education, whether it's through traditional universities or alternative vocational scenarios such as apprenticeships, plays an essential role in our personal and professional growth. Mr. Speaker, education is one of the most powerful forces behind social mobility, yet access remains unequal. Studies show that education provides the skills and credentials needed for stable employment and higher wages. However, despite more people than ever before having access to education, social mobility in the UK is at its lowest level in over 50 years, according to a 2023 report by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Mr. Speaker, if access has expanded, then why does inequality persist? The real issue is not just access, but who gets access. Did you know that students from underprivileged backgrounds are nearly 3 times less likely to gain admission to university or an apprenticeship compared to their more affluent peers? This is not just a UK issue. It is a reality for many under-resourced countries, including Montserrat. Currently, Montserrat has no full-time university, no vocational or technical college, and limited structured apprenticeship. Mr. Speaker, today I stand here as a representative of students who must leave their homes, families, and communities in search of higher education. As an engineering student at the Waltham Forest College, I can safely conclude that access to university and apprenticeship is easier now, but remains limited. Mr. Speaker, while preparing this speech, I reflected upon my peers that are often faced with financial and logistical barriers. While the government of Montserrat does offer some scholarships, many students struggle to secure funding for overseas studies. This, Mr. Speaker, limits their opportunities, and that is unacceptable. Every student, regardless of their background, financial status, or country of birth, deserves an equal opportunity to succeed. Yet, for students from Montserrat and the other UK overseas territories, the barriers are even greater. Many of us are British citizens, yet we lack the same educational infrastructure and support as students in the UK. If we are truly a part of the British family, then we must be granted the same opportunities to learn, to grow, and to contribute to society. We need a system that recognizes the unique challenges faced by students from under-resourced communities and countries alike. This means creating pathways that reflect the diverse needs of all students through inclusive education policies, expanded apprenticeships, and increased financial support. Education, Mr. Speaker, is not a privilege, it is a right. Investing in the future of Montserrat and the other overseas UK territories is investing in the future of Britain itself. I thank you.
No, this is, with many firsts today, I'm going to introduce Owen, who's the youngest person ever to speak in this chamber, and he comes from the remotest place in the world, a part of the overseas territories known as Tristan da Cunha. Can we give a very warm welcome?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I might be the youngest person to ever deliver this speech in this amazing chamber. Well, I might be young, but like everyone here, I got dreams. And I know that education and training is how I make them come true. I come from the remotest community on the planet, on Tristan da Cunha. We are 1,500 miles from the nearest neighbours, and a week at sea from the nearest airport. I wake up every day and hear the sounds of crashing waves and singing birds. My island is beautiful, but living there and getting educated there, that's come with challenges. We have only one school and just a handful of trained teachers. They each have to teach lots of subjects, and if one of them leaves, it's hard to find a replacement. Our resources for learning are limited. We only have a small library and not enough equipment for things like science experiments, but we are creative and we always make the most of what we have. Our internet connection has just got much faster. The school is already making good use of it, linking us with specialist teachers. We're now learning, playing and connecting online in ways we never thought possible. My dream is to pass my IGCSEs and then get trained to be a mechanic. Those skills could take me anywhere in the world, and they're precious back home on Tristan, where we repair our machinery. I have to leave the island to get my training. That's expensive, and going so far from home is tough for young people. But I hope the island and UK will support me. Living on a remote island means we will know each other's business, but it also means great friendship and a strong community. We face challenges, but we find ways to overcome them. Whether it's helping each other study, sharing the fears, or just dreaming big about the future.
Well done. Right, we come to the youth representative, Turks and Caicos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good day to my fellow youth representatives and MYPs. My name is Damari Fulford from the beautiful, by nature, Turks and Caicos Islands, and today I am honoured to stand before you to emphasise what I believe that access to education through university and apprenticeships is the foundation for a brighter future in our islands. This year, our government's annual international scholarship program has opened doors for over 100 exceptional Turks and Caicos Islanders like myself to study at universities all over the world. In 2020, we started a national internship and apprenticeship program that's provided over 200 participants placements, allowing students to work in related fields of studies and industries to improve our human capital, which I am proud to state. However, an important question we must ask ourselves is, are we equally committed to provide opportunities for students studying in the creative and performing arts as we are to those in STEM and tourism in Turks and Caicos? Every student has the right and deserves a chance to fully pursue their passions, Mr. Speaker, without feeling pressure to follow traditional paths based on societal expectations such as conventional financial standards and negative labeling on the arts, as I have experienced as a current music student at the University of Nottingham. By broadening our view of education, opportunities and resources, Mr. Speaker, we empower and encourage individuals to thrive in areas that not only bring them personal fulfillment, but also contribute to our growth of our economies and communities. In 2024 alone, reports have said that the music and entertainment industry has contributed £7.6 billion to the British economy. Additionally, countries such as our neighbours Jamaica grew in popularity based on the rise in their global reggae music. And I believe Turks and Caicos can do the same with our very own rake and scrape genre to attract more tourists annually. Therefore, if we invested more in nurturing and making our creative industries more accessible, we will have the key to a well-rounded and prosperous society. For these are not simply hobbies, Mr. Speaker, but these are investments to diverse educational pathways, which will build a stronger and more dynamic Turks and Caicos Islands. So let's champion education in all forms, academic, creative, and technical, because true progress happens when we recognize that success comes in various pathways, and when talent meets opportunities, our islands, my Turks and Caicos Islands, will flourish. Thank you.
We'll now hear from representatives from the Crown dependencies who will talk about the cost of living, employment and poverty. I call the youth representative from Guernsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Guernsey is an autonomous jurisdiction. We're not part of the UK and we've never had representation in the UK Parliament. However, that's not to say we're not immensely fond of our neighbours across the sea. We share the same currency as the UK, but we collect and allocate our own taxes, we support our own industries, and we face our own challenges because of that. Guernsey's finance industry employs around 23% of the workforce. Everyone knows someone who's worked in finance or has at some point worked in it themselves, but that hasn't always been the case. In the late 1960s, we packaged and exported almost 500 million tomatoes to the UK, with greenhouses covering swathes of the island. Nowadays, our economic as well as geographical landscape look rather different, with 44% of our GDP coming from finance and its associated activities. So it pays for in taxes a significant proportion of our education, social care and welfare. An issue which has been brought to light by recent inflation is the impact of poverty within our community. Whilst we have over the last decade seen a drop in the proportion of households in relative income poverty, our rate still sits at 19%. However, in Guernsey, we benefit from our small size, with an entire island population of only 64,000 people, and whilst it's cliched, everyone really does know everyone, a factor that can be immensely helpful in hard times. We also, as in the UK, have a declining birth rate, with only 451 babies born in 2023, compared to 631 just 15 years ago. That's a 29% drop in my lifetime, and so we're trying to welcome back more of our own students who must leave age 18 if they wish to attend university through more affordable housing schemes and on-island training, allowing them to access more profitable jobs whilst returning back to their communities, bringing their skills with them. In conclusion, despite our small size, we found we tackle the same issues as the UK, whether that be a declining birth rate, changing sectors, or the cost of living crisis. And so we work to find a balance that preserves the current economy, but also invests into the youth so we may continue to develop for their future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now come to the youth representative of the Isle of Man.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was born and live on the Isle of Man, which is an internally self-governing Crown dependency. In 2006, the Isle of Man, in line with the ongoing work of the government to engage young people with politics, reduced the age to vote to 16. So it is an honour and a privilege to represent the island today at Youth Parliament. Currently, the population of the Isle of Man is just under 85,000, but it is an ageing population which presents some considerable financial challenges for the island. In December 2022, 22.5% of the population was over 65, with the smallest age groups being 17 to 19 and 20 to 24. A contributing factor to these low numbers is the large number of students who, once they've completed their A-levels, need to leave the island to attend university and gain qualifications they are unable to attain on the island, with many failing to return once qualified. As the Isle of Man is classed as overseas, the tuition costs are more than those who are living in the UK. The Department of Education, Sport and Culture recognise these challenges and have heavily invested in the Isle of Man College, the only further education establishment on the island. Working with Chester University, they have developed the college to university status and have significantly increased the number of courses and qualifications available to Manx students. The destination data from 2013 2024, for Year 13 leavers shows a continuing trend for school leavers choosing to move straight into the workforce. Many have been successful in securing learn-as-you-earn roles, which is very positive news for the island's economy as we're successfully retaining our young people. The Isle of Man delivered its budget recently, the focus of which was sustainability. If the island is to create a sustainable economic future, it needs to ensure it retains its young people, diversifies the economy, and capitalises on the strengths of the island to attract new, economically active residents. Only when we have a sustainable, economically active population will the island have revenue to support and care for those in true need. Thanks.
All right. I now call the youth representative of Jersey.
Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to the Speaker for inviting me to speak today, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Jersey boasts an economy of over 5.7 billion per annum and an average GDP of around 55,000 per person, which puts us among the top 20 economies globally for living standards. Even though we have a wealthy and strong economy for our size, we are facing potential economic pressure and demographic shifts in the next decade due to an ageing population, decreasing birth rates, and low adoption of new technology. Birth rates in 2024 for Jersey were the lowest since 1945, having fallen 10% since the previous year. These statistics predict a major challenge in Jersey's ratio of working and non-working islanders, which could lead to a decline of revenue to run public services and ultimately a drop in living standards. There is also an increase in Jersey-born young adults leaving the island due to limited job opportunities, high costs of living, and our current housing situation. A skilled workforce is crucial for productivity and growth in Jersey's changing labour market. Despite high employment levels, we experience skill gaps and labour shortages. Therefore, it is essential to enhance our workforce's skills while balancing inward investment and by providing the right reskilling and upskilling opportunities. As an island, we have set the goal to be a consistently high-performing, environmentally sustainable and technologically advanced economy by 2040. To succeed at this, we must take advantage of the rapidly growing areas of industry such as biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and other technological areas, as these industries introduce new jobs to the island that will introduce a new generation of workers. Jersey needs sustainable economic growth that supports family life and development. As an island, we are in a strong position now to acknowledge and act on these problems, and we must do so in the coming years before it's too late. I would like to thank the Speaker again for this opportunity and listening to my presentation.
Can I just say, the future of democracy is very safe. You are the future stars. I can see the MPs, and hopefully the next speaker is amongst us. And I've got to say a big thank you for all the contributions. I'm sorry for those who didn't, but we've still got this afternoon's sessions. I'd also like to thank the clerks in front of me for what they do, the doorkeepers, everybody who's involved, including my own office team as well. So what that does conclude is this morning's session of our sitting. The Youth Parliament will now adjourn until 1:40 after the official photographs in the chamber. I invite you to return to Westminster Hall after lunch. Order! Order!